No one saw it coming. One moment, the courtroom buzzed with the usual tension of a high-profile trial. The next, silence, absolute crushing silence, because the woman walking toward the witness stand wasn't a prosecutor or a surprise expert witness. It was Janice Combs, Diddy's 83-year-old mother. And as she passed by her son, who sat frozen, eyes wide and lips tight, the entire courtroom held its breath. Whatever wall of power, wealth, and denial he had built around himself was about to collapse. Not because of prosecutors, not because of victims, but because of his mother. Janice Combs didn't need to speak to make an impact. Her very presence was a thunderclap. Diddy, who had kept his cool throughout weeks of damning testimony, stiffened instantly. His attorneys looked panicked, reporters stopped typing, and even the judge seemed momentarily stunned. There had been no warning, no pre-announcement, just a name called out. The United States calls Janice Combs. And everything changed. Her walk to the witness stand was slow but purposeful. She didn't look at her son, didn't glance toward the gallery. She was here for something bigger than family loyalty. She was here for the truth. Once sworn in, Janice's voice was steady, measured. She told the court who she was, a mother who raised Sean alone after his father was murdered, a woman who worked multiple jobs to put food on the table, a mother who watched with pride as her son rose from an intern to a global icon. "He exceeded every dream I had for him," she said softly, her face briefly lighting up with memory before darkening again. "Somewhere along the way, something changed," she said, and that's when the emotional blade twisted. She wasn't just talking about her son's behavior. She was talking about watching the boy she raised slowly disappear behind fame, money, and unchecked power. Janice described how her instincts began to scream at her, first quietly, then louder. Visits to Diddy's homes revealed things that didn't sit right. Women who looked disoriented, staff who avoided eye contact, rooms she wasn't allowed to enter. "Mothers know," she said simply. She recalled walking into his Miami mansion in 2008 after a party. One woman was crying while a security guard escorted her out. Phones were being collected from bedrooms. And when Diddy saw her, he exploded, furious she hadn't called ahead. Then came the Los Angeles studio in the pool house. She was never allowed inside. "That struck me," she said, "because I had always been welcome everywhere." When accusations first began surfacing in the late 2000s and 10s, Janice did what any mother would do. She asked her son directly. He told her it was all lies, that women wanted money, that this happened to every successful black man, and she believed him. She wanted to believe him. But then came 2023. Cassie's lawsuit hit, and Janice went to her son again, not as a curious bystander, but as a mother desperate for the truth. "I told him to forget the lawyers, forget the media. Just tell me the truth between us." What he said shattered her. "You don't build what I built by playing by everyone else's rules. Sometimes people get hurt." After that conversation, Janice started keeping notes. She documented her memories, conversations, observations, gut feelings. She was terrified she was losing perspective, that love for her son was clouding her judgment. But the more she wrote, the clearer the pattern became. The truth stared back at her in her own handwriting. She found a disturbing list in his office, women's names with notes beside them. Handled, potential problem. When she confronted him, he snatched the paper and told her it was business. But the look in his eyes told her more than words ever could. "A mother knows," she said again. The courtroom held its breath as she recounted one final private visit. After Diddy's arrest, she visited him in jail. She told him plainly, "I can't stand behind you unless I know what I'm standing behind." What he said next was ice cold. "I created a world where I made the rules, where people either played along or got pushed aside. Was it always right? Number, did people get hurt? Yes, but that's how power works, Ma. She told him that wasn't how she raised him. That wasn't right. And for the first time, her voice cracked. That's not business, she said. That's exploitation. As Janice finished, the courtroom wasn't the same. Jurors wiped tears. Even seasoned reporters sat stunned. Diddy sat motionless, eyes locked on the floor, as if trying to disappear. His lawyers scribbled notes furiously, but he didn't respond. The emotional damage was done. Then came Dr. Margaret Chin, a family psychologist. She explained why Janice's testimony was so powerful. When a mother, after years of support, decides to testify against her son, it's a moral tipping point. It's the moment where truth outweighs blood. The next morning, the gallery was packed. Reporters, victims, and spectators waited for what was coming. Diddy stood and addressed the judge. He wanted to testify. Gasps erupted. Even his own team looked blindsided. When he took the stand, the confident mogul was gone. His voice was low, honest. I listened to my mother yesterday, and I realized I've been lying to myself for years. He admitted to building a system of silence, pressure, payoffs, and fear. I didn't call it coercion. I called it leverage, but it was wrong. After cross-examination, Diddy stood again, and this time it was to change his plea. Guilty. His voice trembled, but his words were clear. After hearing my mother speak, I cannot deny responsibility. The judge accepted the plea. The courtroom exploded into chaos. Headlines blared. Victims sobbed. The industry panicked. Janice was there, silent but firm. She told reporters later, "Love without truth isn't love at all." 6 weeks later, Janice sat in the front row at sentencing. Victims gave impact statements that shook the room. When it was Diddy's turn, he apologized to the women, to his colleagues, to his children, and to his mother. "I can't undo what I did. I can only acknowledge it," he said. Outside, the world was already changing. Labels cut ties. Artists canceled collaborations. More survivors came forward, and fans began asking the hard questions: how this could go on for so long, and why it took a mother's courage to finally bring it down. And Janice Combs? She walked out of that courtroom not just as a mother, but as the woman who finally broke the silence. The ripple effect from Diddy's confession was immediate and devastating. Record labels launched internal reviews. PR teams went into overdrive, desperately scrubbing mentions of past collaborations. Brand partnerships vanished overnight. Artists who once praised him were now distancing themselves in vague, carefully worded statements. Behind closed doors, panic ruled. Executives worried about who might be next. What other secrets were buried behind platinum plaques and red carpet smiles? Old interviews resurfaced. Footage of Diddy speaking in code, laughing off disturbing rumors, or referring to his rules of the game. Everything was re-examined. But the most chilling part? The number of celebrities who had either witnessed disturbing behavior or turned a blind eye. This case wasn't just about one man anymore. It became a mirror held up to an industry that had enabled silence, protected predators, and worshipped power over people. Victims from across the entertainment world began coming forward with their own stories. Fans who once idolized the glitz now felt disillusioned. The myth of untouchable celebrity was cracking wide open. And it all started with a mother, one woman who decided that silence was no longer love. Janice Combs didn't just change the outcome of a trial. She may have opened the floodgates for an entire industry to face its darkest truths. In the days following Diddy's guilty plea, the emotional fallout within his own family became painfully public. His children, once seen sitting silently behind him in court, now faced questions from the media and their peers. Some defended him, calling the situation complicated and asking for privacy. Others stayed quiet, their silence speaking volumes. Whispers began swirling that certain family members felt blindsided by Janice's testimony, while others quietly thanked her for finally saying what they couldn't. For years, the Combs family had projected unity, but now that image was shattered. What was once seen as support began to look more like silence. And as the dust settled, one thing became clear. Janice's choice to speak had changed their family forever, not to destroy it, but to give it a chance to heal. Months later, long after the cameras were gone and sentencing had passed, people still spoke about the moment Janice Combs took the stand. Colleges invited her to speak on moral courage. Advocacy groups quoted her testimony in campaigns for victim rights. Her handwritten notes, once kept in secret, were now studied as a roadmap for identifying abuse masked by power. Her decision became a defining moment, not just in one trial, but in how society confronts celebrity, accountability, and the myth that success excuses harm. In an age where people still hesitate to speak up, Janice Combs proved that telling the truth, no matter how painful, is the most powerful form of love. And somewhere, behind prison walls, her son is still grappling with that truth. Because in the end, what shattered him wasn't fame, or money, or power collapsing. It was the voice of his own mother saying, "Enough."